Welcome to the Mind for Success podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Lebbing, and I love seeing business professionals, leaders, and entrepreneurs have massive success in their businesses. Are you ready to reach a higher level in your business? Are you looking to rise to the top and break through the barriers that are holding you back? If this is you, join us on the Mind for Success podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Mind for Success podcast. I'm Kimberly Lebbing, and I am super excited to introduce our guest today, Anthony Amunategui. He is the founder of CDO Group and a serial entrepreneur. I know you're going to love him, and we're going to have just an amazing time together having a great conversation. So welcome to the podcast.
Kim, I am so excited to be on your show. I love your show. The work that you do is amazing. It's an honor to be here. I really feel privileged, and thank you for having me on.
You are so welcome. And I was so intrigued by when we came up by some of the things you do. So fill our guest in, because you've done some pretty big stuff.
I have, I think about life that I've really enjoyed is the malleability of it, right? To really learn that who I am and what I do is always kind of changing. And it's been this massive discovery. I started off with life working, early days, trying to figure out myself. A lot of times I feel like as a young boy, I was a lot like a dog entering a room, right? You ever take a dog and let your dog off and it walks in a new room, he's smelling everything and kind of, just checking everything out. And I feel a lot like that's how life was, right? New jobs, different ideas, different creations. And then somewhere later on, I realized that somewhere I got to get something done. And that's where things kind of kicked in. And a big part of my last 25 years, I've had lots of companies. CDO Group has been with me for all 25 years. We are a nationwide construction company. We do roughly about $100 million a year worth of development for brands like McDonald's and Starbucks and Chipotle's, and all roll out construction all around the country, all 50 states. And that platform, what's really neat about construction has been my playground. Right. And people are like, well, what do you mean by playground? But in running a company, right, who I get to be shows up differently, right? As a young man, who I was as a young, when I started the company, there was like one Anthony, right? And there was a guy who believed this is how you ran a company. And as I continue to evolve and change, right, there's a whole nother Anthony that gets to show up. And even today, right, it continuously changes. And now I can see them and know that as I change, it's okay. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but on the other side of every change that we've ever done, great stuff has happened. And that's the fun of CDO Group for me. It's like this amazing playground where I get to interact with humans and people and contractors and vendors and customers and practice all of these things that we talk about in mindfulness and communication and all the skills that we create. You could use them in that playground. And that's just one of the little businesses that we do. But there's other ones like real estate companies that I own. I have companies all around the country, that are real estate ventures for different trust groups. And then we do some fun things, like we've got a TV show called Family Style that maybe we'll talk a little bit about, where I take my family around the world and we do these neat adventures. And then the podcast, which is called Future Factory, where I get to interview all kinds of cool people talking about artificial intelligence and business, where it's going and kind of where the future is happening. So there's a lot of neat stuff to do. And all of that is kind of what I call my playground, right? A place that we can practice the principles that we learn in our development.
I love it. And the concept of the playground just puts a whole other mindset spin on anybody. I mean, for anybody, if everybody looked at their life as a playground, imagine how different things would be.
I mean, when we're tired, look, I'm not going to tell you that when I'm hungry, I use the HALT, right? When I'm hungry, angry, lonely, tired, right? Those are places where I forget I'm on the playground, that this is all just a game to play. Sometimes I take it, like, oh my God, it's all happening to me and the world's happening to me. And how could that person do that to me? And when I stop and I really realize that it's not happening to me, it's all happening for me,
Mm.
right? And that's a tough shift to make, right? That shift from to me to for me, right? And when I really can stand in, that playground, that's kind of funny. That all came from the book I read, the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership.
Mm.
It was a great book in that they talk about this imaginary line where they call above the line and below the line. I don't know if you ever got to read the book, but it's this great book, and there's some great practices for business around it. And kind of when I'm above the line, I'm a creator. I'm creative. I'm inspiring. I'm a motivator. I'm a coach. When I'm above the line, I live there. But when I'm below the line, which I probably spend most time with, which is sometimes I feel embarrassed by, but the truth is, I think a lot of us do, in that when I'm below the line, I'm fearful, scared. I act defensive. I get, I'm looking for the dinosaur in the room. I'm blaming. I'm a victim, right? When I'm below the line and that victim mentality, it's hard to be creative when I'm a victim, right? When things are happening to me and those people are out to get me, it's hard for me to be inspiring or really create stuff when I'm in that fearful space.
Now I'll have to read the book because it sounds
Great.
really because I talk to clients about this. I just call it something else, and we can move in and out of that, though, all those things throughout the day. In any given day, you can be in all of them, really.
That's right. I literally move in and out of that moment to moment, right? And then I can, Michael Beckwith, who wrote the book, it's literally I'm in and out of it all day long, and I exactly experience that, and it could be sometimes second by second, right? It could be phone call by phone call, and then I get an awareness like, oh wow, you got triggered, right? A lot of times something will trigger me, and I can notice these triggers that I didn't have before, and so I think that's a fun exercise to look at, and that really does help me to look at things and go, all right, as a leader, I'm looking to create ideas that didn't exist. Right. I think great leadership is the ability to bring a solution to problems that did not exist, but bringing solutions using all of the information from the entire universe, right? To be able to take all of the billions and billions of ideas from the universe and be able to bring them to every solution, right? How do I, for me, it takes real clarity of thought, right? To be able to be real clear thinking and be able to be present to a solution and the people that are in the room and where they're at. And, great leadership really has you be able to bring a solution utilizing all that. Now, when I'm in that below the line state, my solutions get real small. I get really defensive, and I shut that down pretty easily. So I can see that, the consequences of when I'm below the line actions.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's when we focus more on the problem, and we all do it, we focus more on the problem than the solution.
Yeah, we're geared for it. I mean, look, I'm
Yeah.
literally geared to find the dinosaurs in the room every moment. I'm building a school in India with this great Krishna guy. His name is Rupa, and Rupa and I have become friends over the years, and we've traveled the world. And he and I were at my wife and I just celebrated 10-year anniversary of being married. We did in Greece, and he and I were there in Greece, and I was sitting down with him. I was like, Rupa, I have, I lean on him and I get to spend some real quality time with him. And I'm sitting in a pool with him. I'm talking. I'm like, Rupa, I feel like I get up and I'm ruled by these 1,000 forms of fear, right? With all the work that I've done, right? In all the amazing stuff that has happened, I still wake up in the mornings and I still look for dinosaurs in the room. And what about this? What about that? What about this? That voice that's in the back of my head. And he's like, Anthony, if you didn't, you'd be dead. Be dead. The billions of lives that you've had, you've gotten eaten by dinosaurs somewhere, right? Somewhere they believe in multiple lives, and without that little voice back there that's looking for it, you wouldn't be around. Or hey, why do you have sexual thoughts? Or if you didn't, you wouldn't have procreated, right? Your family wouldn't be here. And those are the thoughts, those primitive brain thoughts that really help you survive. And it's natural. Now, how do we bring them into usefulness? Right? How do we take them for where they don't become unhinged, unleashed, where they they overgrow themselves like weeds? right? How do we keep them groomed to a place where they're positively useful? That becomes the practice of the work.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this. And tell us a little bit about the school, because I'm just thinking like
Yeah.
every entrepreneur out there, maybe, I mean, that's an idealistic, huge goal that I think to be able to get to that point where you're able to give back at that level. I think that's just, it's huge.
When my family and I did this trip around the world, we did this big adventure, right? So we took 35 days. We went to 8 continents, or 5 continents, 8 countries. And we went to, one of them was, and everywhere we went, we did a charity work, right? So it started off with Hong Kong, then Vietnam, then Thailand, and then India. And in India, my brother-in-law had a relationship with a distribution company that does a lot of work there. And he said, "Hey, look, we've got this great charity that we support, this distribution company." I said, "I'd love to meet him and talk about him." And it's called Food for Life Vrindavan, right? Vrindavan is this little, very religious point of India, right? It's a little nowhere village, but it's all very religious. They're all temples. The whole village is full of these massive temples. And so he introduced us to Rupa, and we started communicating back and forth. It took over a year. And part of it was we went to the school, and my kids, it's a school for girls, right? So we started with a little 120 square foot box, a 20 square foot school, like a little tiny school. And he had 120 girls in this little tiny box, no air conditioning, no nothing. And today, through work with others and all the work that we do with them, today they have 1,200 girls a day that go there. Now, what's fun about it is in India, oftentimes there's a kind of a propensity not to be happy when you get a girl child, especially when you're in very poor parts of India, right? Because now you have to have a dowry and it costs you. And, there's some, and girls oftentimes aren't cherished the way we are. Their fathers, and it's difficult to say that out loud, right? These beautiful young ladies, sometimes their parents are sad when they have a girl, and you look at them and go, how could you be sad about this child? But when you're poor and you really have enough to eat, and the thought of, I have to now have a dowry, I have to protect her. If girls aren't married by the time they're 10, a lot of times they're on the street. And the school takes a different approach to that, right? It really starts off with, number one, giving them dignity, right? They get uniforms, right? And they get clothes, and they get shoes, and they get 2 meals a day. Every day they get 2 meals a day, right? They're fed, so there's no pressure on their family, right? And all the kids are, and sometimes it's hard to even have their parents see the value of an education because they didn't have one, right? I mean, it's hard to have them leave the home. Sometimes they're the only babysitter, right? We have girls as young as 5 babysitting 4 or 5 kids younger than them, right? Imagine a 5-year-old babysitting 4 or 5 kids that are, 1 and 2 in diapers, right? And you got a 5-year-old babysitting, other children. They grow up pretty fast around there. But we ask your parents, hey, look, we'll pay you if your kid can go to school. And we'll make it a benefit for you and your family if your kid can come to school. And it just takes a couple of bucks, right? Literally just a couple of bucks to help them cover the cost of having someone else watch the children, or maybe they don't have to work that day because they have enough money to get food for the day. And then these girls come to school and they get not just an education, but they get a higher education. So it's not like, we've done some schools in Africa and some other places where education's okay, but it's not the higher level education. Here they get computers, they get karate, they get arts, they get dance, they get all the stuff that really will help them when they go to the higher education. And you watch these girls who are going to change the world. It's a beautiful school. It's called Food for Life Vrindavan. If you want to go to their website, it's fflv.org. fflv.org. It's amazing school, amazing work. Rupa, the one who runs the school there, is just the most humble human being you've ever met. He literally lives and sleeps in his office. He is just all giving to these girls, and to meet him and find someone who's so selfless, it's just a great way to look at life and go, all right, how can I, it's something I'd like to emulate in myself, right? How can I be more like Rupa in that, just giving, and through that, you really feel his heart and the love and the work that they do there.
I love it. What a beautiful, just really beautiful experience.
Oh yeah. It was fun to watch my girls go through it, right? My daughters, right,
Oh,
go
I
there.
bet.
right? And that for them to see my daughters, and we've got 3 girls, and they got to go there, and they look at my daughters, and they're like, they're not married. I'm like, no, they don't need to be married. They don't need a husband to survive. They're powerful on their own. Hey, they may get married one day when they decide to do that, but that's not something. They're not subservient to a man. They're powerful women on their own, and that is really a special gift to be able to give them that. To give them that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked to this prior. I know you're a big advocate of personal growth. I mean, that's what we've been talking about this whole time. And you mentioned that you work with some men
Oh yeah.
on this. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's something that's been fun. So there's 2 organizations I belong to. One of them is called MKP, Mankind Project, and Mankind Project is really up to really helping men become better men. Right. So like, how do we become better men? It's a non-religious group of people that really work on their actions, and their intended actions and their unintended actions. Right. How do we really look at those characteristics of us and how we live, and the practices that we do? And then another group called Men's Living, and Men's Living is an organization that same thing, very, very similar backgrounds, and they really practice mindfulness in a place that gives men, for thousands of years, we were tribal, right? I mean, you and I might have been part of a tribe, right? I might have been part of the men's group, and we might have been hunters. And I would have an elder to walk with. I had someone who taught me, all right, carry a spear like this. Hey, go at the animal downwind, and stand like this, and be careful. Don't step on those branches. You'll scare them. You had guidance, right? The Industrial Revolution comes along, and our parents do what they went to work, and they went to work building great companies and great businesses. And the feedback loop was broken, because now parents come home and they're exhausted, right? And their time with me and our kids was limited, and it gave us very little feedback, right? That part of us that said, you're doing a good job. And a lot of us are getting that feedback loop from places like Facebook, right? Places like video games, right? When you grow another level, you're like, oh, you're doing good. You want another level, right? But these are places that aren't real fulfilling. They might be a little bit, right? And there might be getting something out of it, but that part of us that, it was okay, a safe environment for, another elder to guide you was limited. And a lot of the guides we're getting today is from, YouTube or video games or Instagram, right? The likes and that may not be real, right? It is leaving us all just a little bit empty and a little bit unsure of the ground that we stand on. And you can notice that when you look at people, right? You really notice that you have grace for people, right? They really are drinking off a fire hose. We've never lived in a better time, right? I mean, the planet's never been better, right? We've got more food. We've got more, more people today die from sugar than bullets, right? I mean, imagine just
right.
A couple hundred years ago, people were dying from bullets. I mean, wars and civil wars and, wars between clans and groups. It was a mess. Today I go to Costco, I walk out with a 6-pack of muffins. They're like, no, sir, you're supposed to take 2 of them. They only sell them in 12 packs. I'm like, all right, really? I need 12 muffins for a week. Right? I mean,
it's true.
I literally am like 12 muffins. I just, one of those things would have been enough. But now I've got 12 of them. And the abundance that we live in is phenomenal. It's only going to get better, right? Literally with AI that's coming and all that stuff that's coming, our world is going to get more and more abundant. Now, we got to start realizing that we humans are a little overwhelmed by it, right? As the pendulum shifts to overwhelmingness, right? We could scare ourselves and do what we do. We get scared. What do we do when we get scared? We shut things down. I don't know about you, but as a leader of companies, I'm kind of like a thermostat. Right.
Totally.
Right. I hit that high watermark, and I get a little scared. I shut things down. I get scared, and I go back down to here. And when things get back down here, I turn things back on, and I really start to notice that when the temperature's 73 degrees, it's too hot. Right. It's too hot in the kitchen. And sometimes when business gets a little too carried away, I start, I get in crisis, I get dramatic, I start shutting things down, I get overwhelmed. Overwhelming really means shut things down. Right. If I really look at my leadership as a leader, when I start acting overwhelmed, I shut down my ability to grow. Right. Because ultimately, great leadership is about expand and organize, right? Expand and organize. It's all that the whole game is about expanding and organizing. And when I start getting overwhelmed, I stop organizing, right? I start shutting things down. Maybe it's too much. Maybe we should be a smaller company. Oh my God, this is chaotic. I shouldn't go there. I should, this is too much. Let's stand back in where we were. It was safer, right? But that's not true. The truth is that if we're going to expand, it's beautiful, but now it's going to be chaotic, right? So there's expand and organize, right? But in between the two of them is what? Chaotic as hell.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's
right.
chaotic. And in that chaos, a lot of times I shut myself down, right? I go to that place that says I'm shutting down, and I turn things off and I retreat. But that leaves me empty, right? That leaves me feeling empty. And today, what I really want to work on is, where do I get scared, right? And so the leadership, so that's a Mankind Project or Men's Living, any of those organizations where I get to be around other men who are working hard on, becoming better people, right? Start to notice, for me, the leadership to show up to be a leader, I carry with me a bunch of stuff. Kim, you know what I'm talking about? That
I totally know what you're talking about.
I often visualize it as like the Santa bag, right? You ever see Santa Claus with a big red bag he carries on his shoulder, right?
Yeah.
I walk through life with this Santa bag of crap in it, right? Sometimes I open it up and I'm like, oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, there's some childhood stuff that I'm carrying that I probably don't need to carry anymore. Like, look at that. That's kind of cute. Look at that. I'm carrying that I'm not good enough because my mother worked at Denny's. Oh, how could that not serve me? Let's reframe that. I'm actually amazing because I had a mother who worked her ass off, and Denny's was part of what she did to make me who I am today. Right. I can reframe that conversation around that. I can look at my upbringing and have some grace for the people who raised me that maybe they weren't given a book. They have no understanding of what's going on. They don't have there wasn't a great book or learning to know how to train each one of us. There was they did the best they could, right? My father, who died young, right? My father died as a gangster. And it'd be really, I was mad. I looked at one of those rocks. I'm like, how could my dad die young? Right? Why would he act that way? But then when I reframe, I look at myself and go, maybe that's all he knew, right? Maybe that's all he did. And he was willing to put his life in jeopardy to give me what I have today, right? Maybe that in his wisdom, that's what he thought he would do to survive. That maybe he really was trying hard to give me everything I wanted, right? Or everything I needed, or everything he thought, because I've never yet met a man or woman who doesn't want better for their family. When you're given a choice, right? Other than when they're in fear, right? Sometimes scared ideas, but when we're in fear, we get scared. But the truth is, every man and woman I've ever met wants better for them and their family.
Yeah, absolutely. Even that fear can serve a purpose. Honestly, I mean, they're doing it for a reason. One of the things that I've learned is people do the best they can with the tools they have at the time. And that's just that fear may have been all they knew. And that is how they dealt with it. So yeah, I am in total agreement with you. And I've had my own journey. And it's interesting because that bag you were talking about, it keeps coming. I mean, it's not that the same things keep coming up, but there's like, oh, I never thought of, all of a sudden, you're in doing different things in your business or in your life. And all of a sudden there's something in that bag that maybe you didn't notice before. It's right. A new insight.
Yeah. I mean, as we reframe them, right? As you sort of look at even the small pebbles there, it's not all the big ones, right? Hey, that bringing the thing, it could be the small ones, right? Like here, how about one that's been a great one for me, cussing. Right. I mean, I'm in construction. Cussing's like an accepted practice. People cuss all the time in construction. It's part of it. But if you want to be a leader of $100 million company, right, throwing F-bombs out in meetings may not be appropriate, right? When you're sitting with corporate clients and you're dropping F-bombs in the middle of a corporate meeting, you're like, that might not be appropriate, right? That's a little pebble. That's like a little tiny one. But what's funny about character defects, and to me, I classify it as a character defect, right? As I look at myself and go, all right, if I want to be the man that runs a $100 million company, right? That's a defect of character. It's not going to serve me very well, right? But I work on that. And then I'll go work on other things like, okay, so I got cussing down. I made a whole year, no cussing, right here. Imagine I made a whole year.
That's amazing.
Right. That's fun, right? You're like, that's a fun game to play. And then you start working on other things. Well, how could you have integrity at every conversation you have, right? You start working on this one over here. But what's funny about life is those character defects don't go away forever. Like all of a sudden they pop back up, right? And when they do, like they grow like wildfire, right? All of a sudden, I don't know, I was in fear somewhere or tired, or I remember for last quarter last year, I jumped into a bunch of projects. And I was in the field, playing superintendent on job sites. And I'm there with my hard hat on and my blue jeans, and I'm tired and I'm working, 12, 15-hour days like our superintendents do. And somewhere all of a sudden I started cussing again. Right. And all of a sudden it just like pops back up like they were nothing. Like they're just waiting for you to come back, your old friend, and they just pop back up. They're like, it's like a game of whack-a-mole. Right? You get this character
right.
And then this one over here goes over, and then you're like literally whacking on them. And they're like, wow, right, just jump right back into that thing. And it just waited for me. It was like, you made it a whole year. Now you're throwing F-bombs out like it's inappropriate. And maybe for a minute you're getting away with it, but that long-term, the development of who we are, if I am the product of the behaviors that I show up as, right? When I show up as a leader who doesn't take care of himself, right? When I don't do the physical stuff I need to do to make sure I'm healthy, right? If I don't go work out, and I show up and I'm tired and lethargic and full of a lot of stress energy, right? I may not be able to lead my best, right? So if I don't go to the gym and work out on that might be one of the things I do, right? If I don't eat right and I don't have fuel that fuels the body, right? And I'm tired and I can't make it to 2:00, or I start eating sugar or too much caffeine, right? Those are all characteristics of behaviors that, I get overwhelmed and I just, if I can't get one right, I'm going to not get them all right. And I just start misbehaving. And then, I can ruin a lot of growth by doing that. So it's fun to notice them and just kind of put a list together. With character defects for me, I oftentimes will write them on a piece of paper, and then I'll put the character defect on one side and I'll put the opposite on the other side. I'll take it and I'll put it in my pocket and I'll just carry them around with me. And it kind of gives me a little bit more presence to remember what I'm working on, right? So, it might be cussing or lying or cheating or speeding, right? They're all stuff that may or may not serve me. So.
Right. And I find that when you bring it into awareness, it's easier to fix it or shift it. I like the word shift better than fix. We're not broken. We're not broken, but being able to fix it is key, and bringing it and noticing, that's one of the things, noticing when those things show up. So, and I love it because this is a great example of this stuff shows up for everybody. It doesn't matter what level you are in your business, whether you're just starting out, whether you've been in business for 25 years, this stuff still shows up. It's how you deal with it or how proactive you are that makes a difference.
There is some solace right there. If the only solace you get out of this podcast is that we all experience it, and the guys that you think aren't, I'm 25 years of doing this, running multiple companies and all kinds of things, and I still wake up every morning with imposter syndrome. I mean, I'm like literally, am I good enough? Am I the leader I need to be? Oh my God, have I got to my high limit mark? Am I not going to be able to, am I not educated enough? All those little self-doubt tapes that run in there. Now, sometimes they don't run as often. Maybe it's good, but they're still there. They're still there. I still have to just notice them and go, isn't that cute? Isn't that cute that just came up?
I love that.
Right? It's kind of cute. Like little Anthony just came up. He got scared, and he just got scared for a second, and he just, it's kind of cute that you just went through that whole thing, didn't you? Right? And I kind of laugh at myself. I'm like, wow, you just went down a whole path that, that's true. Right. And maybe, if you think about it, like that's just a story I made up about the moment or a fear that kicked in, and I can go, all right, what do I have to do now? I was doing it. One of my project managers called me the other day, right? It's a good one. So he called me and he goes, on a job site, and there's an inspector here, and he's telling me I have to rip off this whole street, that it's off by 16 inches. And oh my God, this is thousands, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. The whole street's got to get ripped up. It's an entrance to a mall that we're doing. We're off by 16 inches. And he's like, I need your help. Look, I'm going to you because you're the guy. You got to solve it. I'm like, all right, I got to help this guy. Right? He's panicking. There's a lot. It's lots of money, and so I open the plans up, and I'm sitting there, and at first I was having a tough time finding it. Like I was literally just sitting over the plans, looking at it, going, all right. And those self-doubt voices came up. Maybe you're too old. Maybe you're just, maybe your time's passed. Maybe you're just out of, and that little self-doubt came up. Who do you think you are? What's going on here? And I started for a second. I started walking down that path with my brain, right? The part of my brain that was checking me. And I just kept looking at the plans, and I just keep breathing, keep breathing. And slowly but surely it popped out. Right. And I could see an opportunity. And then we figured out that we weren't off 16 inches. He was reading the plans wrong. He was reading a set of architecturals, not the civils. And we pulled it together, and we showed him, hey, there's an easement, and this is why they put it there, and it came to light. But what was funny was I said to the project manager was, in that moment, even I have that doubt. And I've been doing this my entire life. Right. I mean, I've had thousands of projects, and that voice is there to help to protect us. Right. And it's something that just to notice that it still comes up no matter how long you've been doing it. And it's okay. Right. It's designed to keep us alive. And right. That's the part of us that's, saying, all right, our ego gets checked. It's that protective part of us, and it's okay. It's okay to go there and not have all the answers right away, and just keep breathing, stay conscious, stay in the moment. Don't check out, because there's that fear, right? Excuse me, F everything and run, right?
Right.
Right. And for a couple of thoughts, I'm like, oh, I should get this guy's boss on the phone. We should get, why is he calling me? That guy should figure this out. He's the one who messed it up, right? My voice started checking me out of it, and I just kept breathing. And that happens all day long, right? No matter where you are, in every business that we run, right? It's tax season. Oh my God, you want to get checked out? Get on the phone with your accountants and talk about taxes, right? Something that
right.
It's not my magistry, right? It's not something where I love talking about. I hire a group of people to do that because I check myself. I venture to check myself out on that because I don't want to learn all the tax rules and all this stuff. And they start talking taxes, and I can just feel my body going, all right, I'm checked out. No, all right, stay present, stay in the moment, stay with them. It's just, it's a natural reaction for our bodies as we go through the ups and downs of the fear.
Yeah, it is. And it sounds like you've got a great awareness of it. And that I feel like that's a key, like being aware of when you're doing it, because then you can be aware of how to pull yourself out of it and get back above that line that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. And, and those are the playgrounds where, let's go back to the men's group a little bit and talk about that. Why do I go to men's groups, right? Why do I do that? Because I really do believe that, men on this planet, I mean, for me, I work with men because it keeps all the sexuality out of it, first of all, right? Because we have these intimate relationships. And for me, I can really relate to men real well. And we can have these really intimate groups where we can be vulnerable and talk about those experiences that we all go through. And the more vulnerable you are, how vulnerable are you willing to get, right? How uncomfortable can you be? And sometimes, you could throw that work off, right? You could turn that off and act all macho and like, I'm not vulnerable. I don't need any of that stuff. And usually there's where my limiting factor is, right? Because that's where I usually come up with, I don't get to that growth edge is gone, but the more vulnerable I'm willing to be, right, as a leader, and stand in not knowing, and sometimes even stand in being stupid, that, then I stand on those thin branches of life that aren't always there, right? You're not sure they're going to bend and break out. You feel like you're going to break. There are some great opportunities. And then you get to be that way. When I practice that with my men's group, I can then come in the company and practice that with my leadership group. And then when they see me be vulnerable and not knowing, then they feel safer, right? And they
Right.
be vulnerable. And
Right.
there lies the opportunity when we're safe and we can tell each other things. And sometimes I can also notice when I'm dumping on people, right? Because there's also times where I'm not being vulnerable, I'm just dumping, right? Because and I can practice some of those skills. Like, all right, right now I'm just checked out. I'm just dumping on somebody, or I'm vomit. Something like I call it vomit. All right,
Right.
you need to vomit on somebody. It wasn't very useful, but now I can just notice that was me projecting all that stuff on you. It had nothing to do with you. That was all me. And those are great, valuable skills that I did not have without groups like MKP or Men's Living, where those men taught me how to be a little bit more vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's a preconceived notion that men can't be. And it hasn't been my experience. I happen to work with a lot of men. I mean, I work with both men and women, but I work with sales groups. I have a group, and just because you're in construction, I work with a group of roofers. They're in sales. And I am so blown away every single time I go in at how vulnerable they are with each other. And it just lifts them up. It lifts them up whenever they're able to share. It's a beautiful thing. And not what I think a lot of people think that that doesn't happen. But it does.
Imagine a world where that's happening. In fact, my real belief is that's where we're going, right? With all of the drinking off a fire hose that we are, right? There's so many more coaches that are coming to play that people are really realizing in this now time, if we take care of the human, the changes that we go through will be just fine, right? We're the most adaptable creatures there are, right? We really literally I can change in a second. I didn't know that about myself, but I can change in a second. I've had people prove that to me. People are like, well, it takes a long time. No, listen, actually, I'm really, really adaptable. I'm extremely adaptable. I never knew that about myself. And, I was given stories like it's hard to change. You got to work real hard. And, some of that stuff was some old beliefs that, some are useful and some are not useful. Now, it may take a little bit of practice, right? And staying conscious and aware. And all these changes are practice, right? It's nothing I'm ever perfect at. But, as I practice and I practice principles, I bring them to all the stuff that I do in my life, I then have, I can start to see the culmination of that, how, life starts to catch on.
Right.
Right. And then all of a sudden, like, wow, look at that. Right. Oh, I don't have to, fight as hard as I used to fight. I can, or I can also stand in. I can really be uncomfortable and it's okay. I'm not going to break. I don't have to go run and get drunk. Right. It's okay to be uncomfortable. I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was okay to be uncomfortable. In fact, I was brought up, my mother soothed me, took away most of my pain. And so, like, all of a sudden I realized I can be a little frustrated and uncomfortable and I can be okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And going back to something you said earlier about how people need to feel connected. And with all the AI and all the things with, social media and all those things that are into play, I feel like the world is waking up to the fact that they need to center themselves and they need the time away from all that technology to really become whatever it is they want to be. They can serve more people that way. Yeah. So I'd love to hear your take on AI. I know that's something you're passionate about.
I think that as we're now in this moment of creation, right? Like where the world's just changing as fast as it is. I had a group of people on the other day that had, with the invention of LiDAR, right? Which is kind of digital way of measuring. It's how cars self-drive. It sends out these little radar measuring ability to measure. It takes the physical world and brings it into a digital reality. It kind of marries the two of them, right? Now the physical world and the digital world are getting much, much closer together. And right now you remember when cell phones first came out, we had the bag phone.
Right. Yes, I remember that.
I grew up in Florida, and what's funny about the bag phone was the bag phone, literally the first bag phones. My best friend's father ran a cell phone company. It would literally call the tower and then open a phone line and then make the phone call, right? So it had to call a switch that had an open radio signal. So it was a radio that called the physical landline network, and that physical landline network then called somebody and came back that way, right? And today, that's where we are in the physical digital world. But what is coming is going to blow you away. I mean, there are things now where the metaverse, what's going to happen in the metaverse will bring us together. It will bring us together. It's hard to believe that. It's hard to believe that the digital world that I live in today, that's really distracting and taking us off center. And it's the infancy of it. It's literally the infancy of it. And there's just so much information coming at us because it's growing so fast that I can't absorb it and settle into it, right? But what's coming next, this metaverse of a universe where I'll be able to, where you and I will communicate just like we're doing today, and it'll get so much realer, where instead of talking through a camera, right, and a Zoom and a 2D screen, where both of us will be in a room and be able to look into each other's eyes and feel the look, right? It'll get that real, where your reality of where you're at and my reality of where I'm at. I just went to a McDonald's convention. We do a lot of McDonald's work, and they're working on platforms where you and I will be able to order McDonald's from home, have it delivered. We'll eat dinner. We'll be able to eat McDonald's. I'll hear the paper, and your world and my world will literally meld together in a physical world where it'll feel so real that you won't be able to distinguish between the two of them. Now, that's going to take some practice, right? Right now, as we're going off this fire hose of change, right? We really feel clunky about it. It's overwhelming, and I'm not sure what to do. And should I get more likes? Should I get more network? Should I be an influencer? What's all that nonsense is helping change the environment, just like it did in the Industrial Revolution as we went to the 20s, and liquor and prohibition, all that stuff that, imagine Industrial Revolution. We went from being farmers to these big industry, right? Factories, and people worked all these hours, and it was like overwhelming. I'm not with my family. Should I drink? Yes, I can drink. Oh my God. Here on my desk, I keep it.
That was easy.
I love that.
Right. So drinking became the easy button of relief, right? You're separated. You're not sure what to do. You're overworked. You're exhausted. You're not sure that you're doing it right. And your family's holding on, and you feel like you're messing it up because I'm changing so fast. Well, that's happening now. Right? You can really see suicides are up, drinking's up. I mean, smoking dope in every society. Wherever we go, like, all right, let's just get high. If I could just get high, that'll make it go away. But we know one thing about that. We know that's only a moment. That only lasts for a couple of moments. The long-term effects of not feeling our real feelings and going through it, the long-term effect of that is dangerous. Right? When I drink to close a lid on feeling, the long-term effect of that is it gets worse, right? The pain gets worse. You can't numb out. Somewhere in there, we always have to pay the piper. All of my actions, I've never seen anybody get away with anything. You could say, do people lie and get away with? Nope. I venture to say no one gets away with anything. That we're everything that we do, we're accountable for. Now, you may not see it. You may think that you're getting away with it, but the ripple effect of lying, cheating, behaviors that are not appropriate, they always cost us. It's in our integrity. It's the way we think. It's in the way that we believe things about ourselves. When I lie and get away with it, ultimately, don't I believe that I'm a liar? And that's the only thing I can do is, right? There's some cost to my way of being with you and way of being with the world. So look, they all have some effect. I can drink and try to pretend like it doesn't, but it does. So somewhere in there, we're going to pay the piper, but at this now moment, have grace for people. They're overwhelmed, right? They're overwhelmed. Right. It's okay, right? It's okay that you're overwhelmed. It's natural. Now, just help them along and say, hey, I just noticed you're overwhelmed. I just noticed that about you. And I'm not judging you, but I'm here to walk with you. And together, maybe we could do this together. Right? I watch people who work for me and different companies I have, and I just have so much grace for them. I was on the phone this morning early with a group of superintendents that worked all weekend long. I mean, they worked all weekend long, Saturday and Sunday. They're away from their families, and their families are hurting because they're not there to support their families when they're out on a job site. And it pains me. Right? It pains me. Like, how can I get it so these people can be back at home with their families? Right? I want them with their families. but at the time their projects needed some attention. Now, how can I make that up so we on the backside we can go back and really, because somewhere if they're not taking care of their families, they're not taking care of themselves, which long-term costs us as a company, right? I know that there's an effect when people aren't complete. There's an effect to our overall organization, and you can get away with it for a weekend maybe, but long-term effects of that are not good. And so we start looking at behavior. All right, so why did someone have to work the weekend? Well, we got turnover that's happened on Tuesday. It wasn't quite there. We had people that had to get some things done. Now, how can we make it so that those things would have got done by Friday last week? All right, we can start looking and go, all right, someone didn't call somebody didn't do something. There was some cause and effect to the behaviors we had, a couple of weeks ago that caused this weekend to be a mess, right? So we could start to get aware of, all right, how did that happen? Let's make the next project we do not have that effect, right? Let's get inside the project. So it's never, when we have problems out here, it's never here's the problem. It always happens back, a week, a month, months and months ago where the problem started. Right. Just the effect of it's happening here.
Right.
Now, for those projects, it was the roofer didn't show up and never worked all weekend, or the electrician worked all weekend, but there were some contractual issues we had in the beginning of the project. We didn't contract them fast enough. They didn't order the material fast enough. Hence they didn't deliver, what they were doing, in a timely fashion. So there's a cause and effect that I can see when I really dig into what's going on with us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see that show up, what you just described, that shows up with everything, really. I mean, anything in life, if there's something you come to the point where this is coming to a head, there's something from way back here that you didn't deal with that shows up. So this has been such a great conversation. I feel like I could talk to you for hours, or we keep it going, but in the spirit of ending the podcast pretty soon, I would love for you to share, how can people connect with you? Where would you like to lead them to? We'll put a link in the show notes,
sure.
For you as well. But tell us where they can connect with you.
Yeah, but first of all, I want to say thank you. I am so honored to be on your show. I think your show just brings such light to people on this planet. You're literally a light that shines bright every day, and I love listening to your show. It's an amazing show. So people can find me at Anthony Amunategui at LinkedIn. So it's AMUNATEGUI, AMUNATEGUI on LinkedIn. You can find me at Anthony at cdogroup.com as an email address. And that's or you can find me at Future Factory. Future Factory is the podcast that I run. I'd love to have your guests come by and visit us over there. It'd be great to have some of your people come by and check out our show. And it's a lot of fun, and we talk about all kinds of stuff like this every day. So I'd be grateful for that. And so I think that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. So thank you for being on. This has been a great conversation again. And thank you to our listeners for listening today. I know they got a lot out of this, whether they know it or not. There were so many great nuggets. So thanks again.
Thanks, Kim.
Are you ready to break through the barriers that are holding you back and reach a higher level in your business in just 4 hours? Be sure to click the link today and join other high-achieving professionals that have worked with Kimberly Lebbing to accelerate their success.